Okay, guys, who here has seen this bozo on YouTube? Forensic acoustic proof of second shooter in the Las Vegas massacre. Okay, this guy throws a lot of fancy looking high school whiteboard math class crap at you. And, he's dressed like your high school gym coach. So he seems like a, you know, honest, reliable source of information. Except he tells you in his video he's not an honest, reliable source of information because he is not an expert in the field of forensic science, specifically in acoustic analysis. But he's making some very outlandish, very profound claims, and he's leaving really no margin for error as far as his opinion, which is he is resolute in his belief that there were two shooters because, according to him, the unequivocal evidence in the cell phone footage that's been posted on YouTube, where you can hear bullet impacts at the pavement at the location of the shooting, and then you can hear the gunshots themselves. Well, he said because bullet velocity differs from the speed of sound, one is going to arrive at a different time than the other. And he said, by way of example, a 223 round fired out of a 16.5-inch barrel is doing 3 times the speed of sound. And so it will get to the target much quicker than the gunshot sound itself. Okay, that is true, and that stands up to scrutiny. The problem then, though, is that he then takes those two numbers based on that cartridge out of that barrel length and then uses that as the foundation to extrapolate everything else, which, he concludes based on listening to cell phone footage loaded onto YouTube. Okay, these are videos that were processed by God knows how many different programs and gone through how many different kinds of filters before being uploaded, depending on all kinds of variables. That audio could have been distorted a million which ways by the time he heard it. There's no way to know that evidence is good. But that being said, it's irrelevant because he's making a much more faulty assumption here, because based on his constant value of a 55 grain 223 projectile and the fact that he was able to, in the video, what he air quotes identify as a lag time of 0.559 seconds between gun strike, bullet striking, and gunshot sound. That means that gunshot came from 425 plus yards away. And in other sections of the video, he was able to extrapolate using that constant value of that projectile that you've got someone who is 250 yards away because the lag time is reduced to 0.374 seconds. Okay, here's the problem that I have here. Because he says lag time tells you range. Yeah, if you have a constant in the muzzle velocity and the ballistic coefficient of the projectile, okay, the efficiency with which it flies through the air, how quickly does it lose its velocity? Okay, the problem here is there is no reason to disbelieve the media and all the photos of the crime scene that show that he had a pretty impressive looking arsenal with him in that hotel room. I believe it was 23 firearms. Okay, now I looked at one of those photos on some article that I was reading when this first happened. And because I work in the firearms industry, I recognized some of the guns in those photos. And it doesn't matter what their make or model was. But what is important to note is that they were different calibers. Okay? Why is that important? Well, because now we just introduced the possibility, the potential for so many variables that completely destroy this guy's findings. It's not even funny. Okay? So he's assuming that Paddock is using a standard 55 grain ball projectile and is firing those rounds out of a 16.5-inch barrel. Okay, well, 23 different guns are all going to have drastically different characteristics. Different barrel lengths mean different dwell time, which means different muzzle velocity. Different calibers also mean different muzzle velocity. Different calibers also now add or are going to exponentially compound the variable of if he didn't use the same exact type of ammunition for every single shot. Okay, now the type of guy who brings 23 different guns in at least 2 different calibers, one of which was 308 or 7.62 by 51 NATO, and the other was 223 or 5.56. There's at least 2. Okay, well, now why would we assume that he would only have ammunition for both those guns and both those calibers that are achieving the exact same velocity? Well, it's not possible. Okay, the muzzle velocities that you're going to get out of a 223, out of a 16.5-inch barrel, are going to be outside the realm of realism for a 308. The other problem here is we have a wider spectrum now of variables as far as the types of bullets that he was using. Because again, this guy brought 23 different guns. Who's to say he didn't have 30 different types of ammunition of varying velocities? Anybody who's a serious shooter knows that bullet weights run a spectrum within a caliber, and you pick that weight to change its external ballistics to cater to a specific application. So you can get rounds for the same gun that could be going 800 feet per second or 1600 feet per second or 2300 feet per second out of the same gun in the same caliber. So why is he assuming that none of that was at play and that he only used one of the guns that he brought and every single round was exactly the standard or average military NATO round? Nothing else about what this guy did was standard or average. So to assume all these things is very faulty logic. And so the problem that I have with this is that this guy is completely full of shit. Because now I have too much of a life to actually sit down and undo all of his math. But I'm willing to bet that the differences you see in these two velocities here, the 0.7 or 0.374 seconds equals 250 yards, and then the 0.559 seconds equals 425 yards. Yeah, you know what? I'm willing to bet you're looking at the result of 2 different calibers being fired from 2 different windows, which is going to change the acoustic signature depending on which side of the Mandalay Bay building you're firing out of, because you notice they're on an angle, and so the sound of everything is going to change because it's now echoing off of different surfaces at a different time. So if he fired one caliber out of one window and then another caliber out of the other, and he was running super high velocity lightweight loads out of one and then super low velocity heavy dense loads out of the other, you just created such an incredibly wide spectrum that I guarantee it would be probably a greater deviation than his data here. You're a bozo and you don't know what the heck you're talking about, because this is absolutely not unequivocal proof of 2 shooters, 2 origin points of gunshots. So stop muddying the waters with this apocryphal bullshit and let people deal with what we know to be reality, which is not much. Don't get me wrong, but introducing faulty findings and selling your snake oil as fact is not helpful. So, STFU. Leave it to the professionals.